दोस्तों मेरा नाम है भानु शर्मा एंड यू आर वाचिंग इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस ऑफ इंडिया क्रैश कोर्स lecture number 6. Today we'll be talking about Indo-USA relations. Before starting the lecture, here's a small announcement for all of you that Unacademy Summit 2.0, a summit to transform your CSE civil services exam preparation, is being held on February 20th and February 21st, 2021. More than 50 speakers will be there. Discussions and talks and workshop will be arranged. You can register now. The workshop will start at 10 in the morning on 20th and 21st of Feb. Register now and use the code to register ARPITA 10, ARPITA 10. So today we'll be talking about the Indo-American relations and the changing dynamics with respect to the foreign policy of India after the new president Joe Biden has come up in the geopolitics. So the thing is that as far as two individuals are concerned or individuals or societies are concerned, the relationships are often divided into phases. Similarly, when two nation states they achieve a dominion to country status, they are also bound by that phase. Now in India-USA relations, one of the striking similarities was their hold on democracy. USA was the world's oldest, is the world's oldest democracy, and India is the world's largest democracy. And even if you see in the starting days of the national movement in both the nations, whether it was the Indian national movement or the American Revolution, there was this hunger in the mindset of the people to achieve freedom from the British rule. And it has closely been identified in the statements of the then President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1945, who gave special emphasis for India's independence. Here's a small stamp that you can see in the image. And according to Gallup's annual World Affairs Survey, India is perceived by Americans as their sixth favorite nation in the world, with 71% of Americans viewing India favorably in 2015. So that highlights the fact that not just from the economic perspective but also from a perspective of favorism, as well as the Indian diaspora that is present in America, there are always relationship between India and US as allies. And nearly 1 million Indians live in US and contribute towards remittances. That is also one of the reasons that we just don't share a cultural or a democratic historical background but also economic one. And you will find in the editorials in the magazines this one term whenever Indo-US relationships or geopolity is discussed by the name global strategic partnership or global strategic partners whenever they are referring to India or US as a whole. Now the first phase started from 1949 and end was seen in the decline of USSR almost around 1991. As told by me in the previous lectures in the decline of USSR, you will notice that the phase 1 of the Indo-US relationship was quite untrustworthy and also was guided by a lot of misconceptions. PM Nehru visited USA in 1949 before he even proclaimed the policy of non-alignment. But after 1961, the Belgrade, to remain non-allied, US did not trust India as well as its non-alignment in the genuine sense. Because as I told you earlier also, that US always held this thing that if you are not with us, you are against us. And in 1959 also, we see that in order to counteract the non-alignment of India, USA did not supported India in the Nations General Assembly because of our strategic cooperation with Russia, the then USSR. It was simple because we were saying that we were non aligned, but under the official papers, we were quite aligned to the USSR bloc. USA never liked that. And maybe that was also one of the reasons that India also sided in the 1960s with China in Korean crisis because we were quite heavily inclined towards the communist bloc. USA knew this thing, and that is the reason why they never supported us in the United Nations General Assembly. Now in 1962 war with China, Nehru requested help from USA. At that time, in order to counteract the Chinese influence, many of the people, many of the diplomats, they say that USA helped India recognize McMahon Line as Indo-China border. But the thing to understand here is that in that USA helped India not because they wanted to help India from a perspective that India should win on a geopolitical level, but from a perspective that China should lose its grip on the international platform. That is the reason why USA helped recognized McMahon Line as the Indo-China border. Countries in NAM supported China and USSR remained neutral. At that point of time, we needed USA to be on our side. USA was ready to provide arms and air support, even dispatched USS Enterprise to threaten China. And it is very important thing to know that the US diplomats, they knew that China will rise in the coming time, which we are now seeing. And they also knew the fact that there should be a counteracting forces or a force just like India. So they helped us. One of the most important and the most prevalent example that you will see in all the textbooks, in all the magazines, is the economic aid and military aid provided uh, at IIT Kanpur by the US. Now, in 1965 war with Pakistan, USA maintained a neutral stance despite being an ally of Pakistan. So this is also one area where you can understand that US is also playing the non-alignment part on their foreign policy as well. However, India continued to give preference to USSR, which became mediator in Tashkent Agreement 1966. And because of our alignment, because we used mediator as the USSR and not USA, USA sided with the Pakistan, and India forged a treaty of peace and friendship with the USSR in 1971. So by these all events, you can understand that everything that takes place in geopolitics is always guided by reciprocity. One event is connected with the another one, and then that event with the another one, and that is how the chain of events happen. And during the phases of Cold War, USA did not have any Indian specific policy that was written in many of the documents. So what does that mean? This means that in the initial days, USA did not even thought that India would become such a great nation. And that is the reason why they never had an Indian foreign policy or an Indian specific policy, but a cumulative South Asia policy. They considered India as a homogeneous unit somewhere of the countries in the South Asia. And that was also one of the reason because India closed all the economic outcomes. We were a closed economy till 1991, and USA was having a capitalist stance. One of the focus in the phase was India's nuclear non-proliferation treaty, and the 1974 Pokhran experiment further deteriorated the relations. In 1982, Indira Gandhi visited US, and the main concern was India's nuclear program, but there was no achievement at all. And even in 1984, when the Bhopal gas tragedy happened and the judicial pressure was on the government, to give justice to the people. And when the external ministry talked to the US government, they refused to cooperate. And that is also a showcase that in the phase 1 it was not a good relationship between the Indo and US unit. Now the phase 2 starts from the end of the Cold War to 2005, and this is the phase in which we will see some sort of stability between the two nations relation. It was a transference of bipolar to unipolar world from 1991, and India formed Russia and China to form RIC triangle. Now what is this RIC triangle? RIC is basically a grouping of Russia, India, and China to counteract the Western influence. India never started this triangle, it was the Russian uh, politics unit who got emerged after the decline of the USSR, that they really wanted to counteract the influence of the West, even at the cost of the decline of USSR. So, India formed a major part in this, and India never joined the NPT or the CTBT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. And even in the 1998 Pokhran test, everything was completely deteriorated because of the sanctions being imposed by the US government on us. And thus, USA now compelled India to sign CTBT. But however, we see that in the 1999, for the first time during the Kargil War, in US sided India. And Bill Clinton's visit in 2000, after 22 years, marked the beginning of strategic partnership. And we see this strategic partnership, the reason of the strategic partnership is for the simple fact that whenever economy will rise, the opening up of the economy, liberalization and LPG reforms made US realize that India is such a big market. So many people are there, so many opportunities are there, and so they realized this fact. And in 2001, USA lifted the sanctions and called India a natural ally. This is the most important thing. And strategic partnership led foundation of civil nuclear cooperation. And you can also see the cooperation in space, in high technology, in defense technology after the 1991 end of the decline and decline of the USSR. Now we have witnessed that in the phase 1 the relationships were deteriorating, and even in the phase 2 sanctions were imposed, but at the end of the phase 2 we see some sort of green shoots in the economic as well as in the cultural relationship between the US and India. And in the phase 3, that is from 2005 to the present, it is referred to as the golden time, golden period of the Indo US relationship. Manmohan Singh paid a visit to US and finalized the 123 agreement. Now what is this 123 agreement? I'll be telling you in the next slide. And a defense framework was also signed for the 10 years. In this defense framework there were several military exercises which which were to be held in the coming 10 years, that is from almost around 2005 to 2015. And in 2016 USA granted India status of major defense partner. Now the status of major defense partner is almost equivalent to being a natural US ally, just like Israel is. And we can understand that the growth in our relationship, the more warmth in the relationship between India and US was also witnessed by the opening up of Indian embassy in Israel as well. Now, what is this 123 agreement or civil nuclear deal in 2005? It ended nuclear isolation of India. India was no more nuclear isolated, just like Iran is. It recognized India as a responsible nuclear weapon state. This is very important statement. Please note that. Because India follows a Buddhist foreign policy that we will never use the nuclear weapon on the offensive side, but only in case somebody is getting into our territory or somebody is going way front. only for defense purpose we will be using the nuclear weapon. Under this, India agreed to separate the civil and military nuke facilities while placing the civil nuke, and US also agreed for full nuclear cooperation and a waiver from the NSG group, nuclear supplies group. So this showed that India was opening up economically, as well as the nuclear isolation was also ending. And in order to counteract this, even China supported nuclear weapons program of Pakistan and proliferation of missile program of Iran and North Korea. So you can understand that while the USSR declined in 1991, new bloc, that is the Chinese bloc, is now rising, which we can understand by the 123 agreement, where when we signed the 123 agreement in 2005 with US, China was supporting Pakistan and Iran and North Korea. Now 2010 Obama visit. Now you will understand that as far as the phase 3 is concerned, the more we are getting into the end of the phase 3, or from 2005 to 2021, there is a constant rise of warmth between the international relations of India and US. The 2010 Barack Obama visit was called Indo-US friendship as most defining friendship of 21st century. And US even promised that they will support India for the seat in United Nations Security Council, though they express concerns over civil liabilities under Indian Act. Now the 2015 Obama visit. Now you should understand that this visit holds a really very integral part. For the matter of fact that Obama was the only president of USA who visited India twice, and he was invited as the chief guest on Republic Day, and Prime Minister Modi resolved US concerns over civil nuclear issue. As well, the defense framework that was signed in 2005 was also renewed for next 10 years. And the Defense Trade Technology Initiative was also signed, DTTI. Under this Trade Technology Initiative, it is nothing, it is basically a treaty, an agreement which comprises of various companies, various private firms, and India to trade the military arms, ammunition, and other things. Now we see that they become more strong under the Trump regime, developments under Trump 2016. Now, the Trump government released South Asia strategy acknowledging India's constructive role in Afghanistan and Indian Ocean. There were 2+2 dialogues which started in 2018, and as you all know that Malabar exercise, which is a trilateral naval exercise involving the United States, Japan and India, have become permanent members. Please note that Malabar exercise is very important for the UPSC coming exam. Now, one of the most important thing that, as far as we have understood, are all the static points related to the Indo-US relationship. But now, what is the outcome? What is the contemporary? What is the modern look? What is the current affair of these relations? So, the new security strategy of US. Now, please note that Indo-Pacific phrase is now being used under the Trump government instead of the Asia Pacific in US security framework. It includes west coast of India to east coast of USA. And we all know that China and Russia are revisionist state. Revisionist state means that they want to change the world order. Russia wants to bring back that old glory, and China is also somehow influenced by that because China as a nation also uses expansionist policy. However, India is the leading global power and a strong strategic defense partner and a natural ally, as I told you earlier, with the USA. And that is the reason why USA intensified pressure on Pakistan to counter-terrorism efforts and to be a responsible guardian. And that is also the reason that in the United Nations and many other world platforms, we see that USA has negatively criticized and said many a times against the terrorism and the terrorist activities and the proxy war that Pakistan tries to play, and we have seen the effect in the FATF. Now, no partnership can survive a country harboring militants and terrorists. That was the stance that USA said to Pakistan. Now, what we need to understand is that Donald Trump is no longer the president of the USA, and now there are the changing dimensions in the Indo-US relations in 2021 by the coming of Joe Biden. There is a possibility of improvement in the status of non-resident Indians and people of Indian origin who were negatively affected by Trump's protectionist policy, as we all know. And Vice President Kamala Harris is also of Indian origin. So this is one point which can be changed. The Trump administration imposed restrictions on the Indian goods in an effort to balance the Indo-US trade balance in favor of the US, as well as separate India from the GSP category. What is GSP category? You will be learning in the next lecture. So it is possible that these economic restrictions will be abolished under the Biden's administration. Now, one of the most important and the final point that the Trump administration had unilaterally banned the nuclear deal with Iran, going against the previous Obama administration's decision. And we have seen that India's relations are good with both the America and the Iran. In such a situation, a dilemma has risen in front of India, for which many of the diplomats have written, and the articles are being published on a daily basis. You can see it in many of the newspapers defining this dilemma. And so it is possible that Joe Biden's administration will resolve this issue and this situation. So this all for today. Stay safe and stay healthy. I will meet you